The stars looked peaceful through the big windows of the UES Liberty. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge, watching the endless black space filled with tiny lights. Her ship carried 50,000 people to their new home on a distant planet, called Kepler 442b. Families, workers, scientists, and children all traveling together to start fresh lives. Danny Wright pressed his small face against the window in the passenger section. He was 8 years old with brown hair and bright eyes that sparkled when he smiled. His parents, Jake and Linda Wright, sat nearby, talking quietly about their new life ahead. "Look, Mom, that star is really bright," Danny said, pointing at a distant sun. Linda smiled and ruffled his hair. "That's our new sun, honey. We'll be there in just 2 more weeks." Jake put his arm around his wife. "Think about it, Linda. Danny will grow up on a whole new world. He'll see things we never imagined." They had no idea that Danny would never see that new world. The first sign of trouble came at 800 hours ship time. Lieutenant Ben Clark at the communication station heard strange signals on the long-range scanner. "Captain Santos, I'm picking up multiple contacts. Big ones." Maria walked over to look at the screen. "How many ships?" "At least 20, ma'am. Maybe more. They're not showing up clearly on our sensors. Try to contact them. Send the standard peaceful greeting." Ben typed quickly and sent the message. They waited. No response came. Then the alien ships appeared. They came out of nowhere, surrounding the Liberty like wolves around a sheep. The ships were dark and angular, covered in sharp edges and weapon ports. They looked nothing like any human vessel. "Red alert," Maria ordered. "All passengers to safe areas. Security teams to stations." The ship's alarms rang throughout every deck. Families gathered their children and moved to the protected areas. Danny held his mother's hand tight as they walked down the hallway. "What's happening, Mom?" "It's okay, sweetie, just a drill. Everything will be fine." But Linda's voice shook when she spoke. She knew this was no drill. On the bridge, a new voice came through the speakers. It was deep and cold, speaking perfect English with a strange accent. "Human vessel, this is War Commander Vextel of the Zephyrian Hegemony. You will stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." Maria stepped forward. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the UES Liberty. We are a civilian ship carrying families to a new colony. We mean no harm to anyone. All humans are a threat to the galaxy. You spread like a disease from world to world. This ends now." The alien ships moved closer, their weapons charged with blue energy that made the space around them glow. "Please," Maria said. "We have children aboard. Innocent families, just looking for a new home. Your children will learn what happens to species that expand beyond their place." Several alien ships docked with the Liberty. Soldiers in black armor with strange weapons came aboard. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. Their faces showed no emotion at all. The soldiers gathered all the passengers in the main cargo bay. Thousands of people stood together, holding their children close. Danny stayed between his parents, looking up at the scary aliens with wide eyes. War Commander Vextal entered the bay. He was taller than the other aliens, with scars across his face and symbols of rank on his armor. He looked at the humans like they were insects. "I am Vextal. Your species thinks it can take any world it wants. You think you are special. Today the galaxy learns the truth about humans." He walked among the crowd, studying faces. Parents pulled their children behind them when he came near. "We will broadcast across all human space. Every world, every ship, every station will see this. They will learn what happens to those who dare to challenge the Zephyrian hegemony." Maria pushed through the crowd. "If you want to send a message, take me. I'm the captain. Leave the civilians alone." Vextal looked at her with cold eyes. "Your sacrifice would mean nothing. No one would care about one ship captain." He continued walking until he stopped in front of the Wright family. Danny looked up at the tall alien, his small hand holding tight to his father's. "But a child," Vextal said slowly. "The death of an innocent child will show all humans how weak and helpless they truly are." Jake stepped in front of his son. "No, take me instead. Please." "Dad?" Danny's voice was small and scared. Move aside, human, or we will kill all three of you. Two soldiers grabbed Jake and Linda, holding them back. They screamed and fought, but the aliens were too strong. Please, Linda cried. He's just a baby. He's done nothing wrong. Vextal grabbed Danny's arm and pulled him forward. The boy looked back at his parents with tears in his eyes. This is being broadcast live to every human world, Vextal announced. Watch as your species learns its place in the galaxy. The next few minutes were the darkest in human history. The broadcast went out to Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, and every human ship in space. Billions of people watched in horror as an innocent child was murdered, just to send a message. Danny Wright died far from home, surrounded by strangers who hated him for being human. His last words were, "I want my mommy." When it was over, Vextal looked directly into the camera. Let this show all species what happens to those who dare expand beyond their primitive worlds. Humans are weak, and weakness deserves only extinction. The broadcast ended. The alien ships left the Liberty drifting in space, its passengers broken and traumatized. Captain Santos sent emergency signals to any human ship that could hear them, but the real message had already been sent. Across human space, on every world and station, billions of people had seen the same thing. They had watched a child die, for no reason except that he was human. War Commander Vextal thought he had shown humanity its weakness. He thought the murder of one innocent boy would make humans afraid, would make them stay on their own worlds and never venture into space again. He was wrong. He had just made the biggest mistake in the history of the galaxy. He had declared war on human children, and humanity would never ever forgive that. The news spread faster than light itself. Every human world, every space station, every ship received the terrible broadcast. Danny Wright's death was seen by 12 billion human beings across the galaxy. On Earth, President Helen Davis sat in her office watching the recording for the 10th time. Her hands shook as she saw the little boy's frightened face. She had seen war, disease, and disaster during her long career. But nothing had prepared her for this. "Get me Admiral Carl Mitchell," she told her assistant. "Get me everyone. Emergency Council meeting in 1 hour." The Human Defense Council met in the deepest bunker under the capital city. Representatives from every human world appeared on the big screen. Miners from the asteroid belt, farmers from the agricultural worlds, scientists from the research stations. All of them had the same look on their faces. Admiral Mitchell was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and thought he had seen everything. But when he looked around the table, he saw something new, something that scared and amazed him at the same time. "The Zephyrian hegemony has made their position clear," President Davis said. "They see us as a threat to be eliminated. They murdered a child to prove their point." "It wasn't just murder," said Dr. Patricia Bell from the Military Research Division. "It was a declaration of war against our entire species, against our future." Governor Tim Brown from the Mars colony spoke from the screen. "My people are ready to fight. Every man and woman on Mars volunteers for military service." "Same here," said Captain Lucy Green from the mining station Alpha 7. "We'll give everything. We have." One by one, every human leader said the same thing. The outer rim traders who usually fought with the core worlds, the pacifist colonies that had never supported war, the independent asteroid miners who didn't trust any government. All of them spoke with one voice. War Admiral Mitchell had never seen anything like it. In all his years of service, humans had always been divided. Rich worlds versus poor worlds, military versus civilian, core versus rim. But now, watching these screens, he saw something impossible. Unity. Complete and total unity. "They wanted to show us our weakness," President Davis said. "Instead, they showed us our strength. When someone threatens our children, we stop being separate worlds and separate people. We become humanity." The meeting lasted 18 hours. By the end, every human world had pledged everything they had to the war effort. Ships, weapons, people, resources, money. Nothing was held back. Dr. Bell received unlimited funding for Project Nemesis, the most secret weapons program in human history. I need every scientist we have, she told the council. Every engineer, every researcher. We're going to build weapons the galaxy has never seen. Captain Lisa Turner from Human Intelligence spoke next. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who rarely said much. But when she spoke, people listened. Every human trader, every diplomat, every tourist in alien space is now part of our intelligence network. We're going to learn everything about the Zephyrians. Where they live, how they fight, what they fear, everything. How long do we need? President Davis asked. Give us 1 year, Admiral Mitchell said. 1 year to prepare, and we'll give you a war they'll never forget. Across human space, the mobilization began. On Earth, factories that made cars and computers started making weapons and ships. On Mars, the underground cities became military bases. In the asteroid belt, miners turned their tools into weapons. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded a cargo ship that usually carried supplies between worlds. The day after the broadcast, he landed on his home world of New Texas to find his entire crew waiting for him. We're joining the Navy, his engineer Pete Wilson told him. All of us. The Zephyrians made a mistake, added his pilot Kate Sullivan. They think we're just traders and farmers. They're about to learn different. Dr. Jonathan Hayes led the weapons research team on Luna Base. Before Danny Wright's death, his team had 12 people working on new ship designs. After the broadcast, he had 12,000. Scientists came from every human world to work for free. We're not just building better weapons, Dr. Hayes told his expanded team. We're building weapons specifically designed to fight Zephyrians. Every weakness they have, we'll exploit. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sophie Green was a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. She had samples of Zephyrian tissue from old diplomatic meetings. Working day and night, she made a discovery that changed everything. They have a fatal flaw, she announced to the research team. Their nervous systems are vulnerable to a specific electromagnetic frequency. We can build weapons that target this weakness. Meanwhile, in Zephyrian space, War Commander Vextal was being celebrated as a hero. The hegemony leaders praised him for putting the humans in their place. He was promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander and given control of their largest fleet. The humans have learned their lesson, Vextal told his officers. They're pulling back their expansion fleets, recalling their diplomats. Soon they'll retreat to their own worlds and stay there. The other alien species in the galaxy watched and agreed. The Corvan Trade Union canceled their treaties with humanity. The Stellar Republic closed their borders to human ships. Everyone assumed the humans were beaten. They were all wrong. In the Deep Space Station Omega-9, Intelligence Officer Steve Davis prepared for the most dangerous mission of his life. He had volunteered to infiltrate Zephyrian space and gather information about their military. You don't have to do this, Captain Turner told him. We have other ways to get intelligence. Steve looked at the picture of Danny Wright on his desk. The boy's innocent face had become the symbol of human determination. Yes, I do. That kid died for no reason except that he was human. I'm going to make sure his death means something. As Steve's ship disappeared into enemy space, President Davis stood in her office looking out at the stars. Her aide brought her the daily reports. Every human world was working at maximum capacity. The military buildup was ahead of schedule. The new weapons were testing perfectly. Ma'am, the aide said quietly, the Zephyrians still think they won. They have no idea what's coming. Helen Davis smiled for the first time since watching the broadcast. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Good. Let them think they've broken us. Let them celebrate their victory. In 1 year, they'll learn what humanity really is when someone threatens our children. She turned back to the window, looking out at the stars, where Danny Wright had died. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were planning humanity's destruction. They thought one dead child had shown human weakness. They were about to discover it had awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity truly united for war. 6 months had passed since Danny Wright died. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like the humans were beaten. Human ships stopped exploring new systems. Human diplomats left alien worlds. Human colonies stopped expanding. The other alien species, nodded to each other with satisfaction. The Zephyrians had been right. Humans were weak after all. But they were looking at the wrong things. In the hidden shipyards of Titan, Admiral Kevin Ross watched as the largest fleet in human history took shape. Hundreds of new warships floated in the construction bays. These weren't like the old human ships. These were built for one purpose only, to destroy Zephyrians. "How many ships will we have ready?" Admiral Ross asked his chief engineer, Nancy Clark. 800 combat vessels by the target date, Nancy replied. "All equipped with the new electromagnetic weapons. The Zephyrians won't know what hit them." The ships looked different from anything humans had built before. They were sleek and black, covered in weapon systems designed by Dr. Bell's team. Every gun, every missile, every piece of equipment was built to exploit Zephyrian weaknesses. Dr. Jonathan Hayes walked through the weapons testing facility on Luna Base. His team had worked without rest for 6 months. They had created weapons that no human had ever imagined. "The EMP torpedoes are ready," he told Dr. Bell. "When they hit a Zephyrian ship, their nervous systems will shut down instantly. They'll be alive but completely helpless." "What about ground forces?" Dr. Bell asked. "We have portable EMP generators that can disable entire Zephyrian armies. They'll be conscious but unable to move or fight." Dr. Bell smiled grimly. "Perfect. We want them to see what's happening to them. We want them to understand that they brought this on themselves." In a secret training facility on Mars, Colonel Amy Parker watched her elite soldiers practice. These weren't ordinary troops. They were volunteers from every human world, all united by one thing. They had seen Danny, Wright die, and sworn to make the aliens pay. "Remember," Colonel Parker told her soldiers, "we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to make sure no human child ever faces what Danny faced." The soldiers nodded. They had trained for 6 months without a single day off. They could fight in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in conditions that would kill ordinary people. They were ready. General Paul Martinez coordinated with resistance groups on worlds conquered by the Zephyrians. Through secret channels, he sent weapons and supplies to aliens who had suffered under Zephyrian rule. "The Corellians want to join our fight," he reported to the War Council. "So do the Altarians and the Centauri refugees. They've all lost people to the Zephyrians." President Davis listened from her command center deep under Earth. The room was filled with screens showing the progress of humanity's war preparations. Every indicator showed green. "Ready?" "What about intelligence?" she asked. Captain Turner stepped forward. "Steve Davis has been inside Zephyrian space for 4 months. His reports have given us everything we need to know." On the main screen, they could see Steve's latest message. He looked tired and thin, but his eyes burned with determination. "Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal commands their main fleet from the capital world of Zeph Prime," Steve reported. 300 ships, their best commanders, their strongest defenses. He thinks he's untouchable. Steve paused and looked directly into the camera. He keeps a picture of Danny right on his desk. He looks at it and laughs. He tells his officers that killing one human child broke the entire human spirit. The room fell silent. Every person there felt the same cold anger. "He's wrong," Steve continued, "and in 6 months he's going to learn just how wrong he is." The breakthrough that changed everything came from Dr. Sophie Green's xenobiology lab. She had been studying Zephyrian biology for months, looking for every possible weakness. "I've found something incredible," she announced to the research team. "The electromagnetic frequency that disrupts their nervous system also affects their ship's computer systems. Their entire technology is vulnerable to the same weapon." Dr. Hayes leaned forward. "You mean one EMP pulse can disable both their bodies and their ships?" "Exactly. We can take out entire fleets without killing anyone. They'll be helpless, floating in space, unable to fight back." This changed everything. Humanity could win the war without becoming monsters themselves. They could show mercy even while delivering justice. Industrial leader Greg Thompson had converted his entire business empire to support the war effort. Factories that once made civilian goods now produced military equipment. His workers volunteered for double shifts without extra pay. "My daughter is 8 years old," he told his factory managers. "The same age as Danny Wright. Every weapon we make, every ship we build, protects children like her." In the Outer Rim, miners and traders who had never worked together were now a unified force. Captain Lucy Green commanded a fleet of converted cargo ships, each one armed with the new weapons. "The Zephyrians think we're just civilians," she told her captains. "They're about to learn that every human is a warrior when our children are threatened." Back in Zephyrian space, Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Everywhere he looked, the news was good. Human expansion had stopped. Human military activity was at the lowest level in decades. The humans learned their lesson well, he told his senior officers. One dead child taught them their place in the galaxy. His intelligence chief, Sub-Commander Krell, seemed worried. "Sir, we're getting some strange reports. Human ships gathering in remote systems. Unusual radio chatter from their worlds." Vextal waved dismissively. "Probably refugees fleeing to their homeworlds. The humans are finished as a galactic power. Soon we can complete their elimination at our leisure." He looked at the picture of Danny Wright on his desk and smiled. The human child's death had been the perfect weapon. It had broken the human spirit completely, or so he thought. On Earth, in the deepest command bunker ever built, President Davis stood before a wall-sized map of the galaxy. Red markers showed Zephyrian positions. Blue markers showed human forces moving into position. "Status report," she ordered. "All fleets are in position," Admiral Mitchell reported. 800 ships ready for the first wave. Special forces teams prepared for deep strikes. Intelligence networks activated across Zephyrian space. EMP weapons tested and ready, Dr. Bell added. "We can disable their entire military without killing them." "Resistance groups standing by," General Martinez said. "Every species that suffered under Zephyrian rule is ready to rise up." President Davis looked at the large screen showing Danny Wright's picture. The boy's innocent face had become the symbol of humanity's determination. "1 year ago they killed a child to show our weakness," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, we show them what that child's death awakened." She turned to face her commanders. "Begin Operation Reckoning. It's time the galaxy learned what happens when someone threatens human children." Across human space, the most powerful military force in galactic history began to move. The Zephyrians had started this war by murdering an innocent boy. Now humanity would finish it. 1 year after Danny Wright died, humanity struck back. It began at exactly 600 hours across 17 different star systems. The Zephyrian hegemony had never seen anything like it. Human ships appeared everywhere at once, as if they had risen from the darkness of space itself. Admiral Kevin Ross led the main attack on Zeph Prime. 200 human warships dropped out of hyperspace around the Zephyrian capital world. The alien defenders had only seconds to react before the electromagnetic pulse weapons fired. "All ships activate EMP weapons on my mark," Admiral Ross ordered. "Remember, we want them alive. Danny Wright was murdered in cold blood. We're better than that." The blue energy beams struck the Zephyrian fleet. 300 alien warships suddenly went dark. Their weapons stopped working. Their engines died. Their computers shut down. But the crews were alive, floating helplessly in space. On the surface of Zeph Prime, Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal stared at his command screens in shock. Every ship in his fleet showed red warning lights. None of them responded to his orders. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Why aren't our ships fighting back?" His communications officer tried frantically to reach the fleet. "Sir, all ships report total system failure. They can't move, can't shoot, can't even send messages." Then the human ships moved closer. Boarding shuttles launched from every human vessel. Zephyrian crews watched in terror as armed humans cut through their hulls and entered their ships. Captain Tony Rodriguez led the boarding team onto Vextal's flagship. The Zephyrian crew stood frozen in the corridors, unable to move but fully aware of what was happening. "Secure all levels," Rodriguez ordered his troops. "Find their command staff. And remember, these are prisoners of war now. We treat them properly." "Chew," Same scene played out across 16 other star systems. Commander Julie Brooks coordinated the attacks from her command ship. Her screens showed green lights as human forces captured one Zephyrian position after another. Sector 7 secured, came the report from Captain Lisa Morris. All enemy ships disabled. No casualties on either side. Sector 12 reporting complete success, added Major Dave Thompson. Zephyrian ground forces neutralized. They're all alive but can't fight. Sector 4 here, said Colonel Kate Sullivan. We've captured their main communications hub. The entire hegemony is cut off from each other. The Zephyrians had built their empire on fear and superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that knew every detail of their weaknesses. Every secret base, every hidden fleet, every escape route had been mapped by human intelligence. On the mining world of Kepler-7, Captain Lucy Green led her converted cargo ships against a Zephyrian supply depot. The aliens had laughed when they saw civilian ships approaching. They stopped laughing when the EMP weapons fired. This is for Danny Wright, Lucy said as her boarding team secured the facility. This is for every child who ever had nightmares because of what you did. Back on Zeph Prime, Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal found himself face-to-face with Captain Maria Santos. She had survived the attack on the UES Liberty and requested to personally capture the alien who had murdered Danny Wright. You remember me? Maria said as she entered Vextal's command center. The alien commander was frozen in place, unable to move but able to speak. The captain from the colony ship, Vextal managed to say, How did you survive? I lived to see this day, Maria replied. The day when humanity shows you what real strength looks like. She activated her communicator. Admiral Ross, this is Captain Santos. I have Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal in custody. Understood, Captain. Read him our terms. Maria looked directly into Vextal's eyes. The human race offers you one chance at survival. Unconditional surrender. Every Zephyrian involved in Danny Wright's murder will face trial. Your military will be disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Vextal's voice was filled with rage. Never. The hegemony will never surrender to inferior humans. Then you've chosen the hard way, Maria said. She activated her communicator again. Admiral Ross, he refuses our terms. Authorization to proceed with the Danny Protocol. Across the galaxy, President Helen Davis watched the battle reports from her command center on Earth. Every human world was celebrating as news of the victory spread. But she felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. Ma'am, Admiral Mitchell said, Vextal has refused to surrender. Admiral Ross is requesting permission to activate the Danny Protocol. President Davis looked at Danny Wright's picture on the main screen. The little boy's innocent face reminded her why this war had to be fought. Permission granted. Show them what happens when someone murders our children. The Danny Protocol was humanity's ultimate weapon, not a single devastating attack, but a coordinated assault that would systematically destroy every piece of Zephyrian military power in the galaxy. Admiral Ross received the authorization and activated the protocol. All human fleets, this is, Admiral Ross, execute Danny Protocol. Show them no mercy, but remember, we're not murderers like they are. What followed was the most one-sided battle in galactic history. Human ships struck every Zephyrian military base, every weapons factory, every training facility. The EMP weapons disabled everything they touched without killing anyone. Within 6 hours, the mighty Zephyrian hegemony was completely helpless. Their fleets floated dead in space. Their armies stood frozen on 100 different worlds. Their leaders sat in their command centers, unable to move or fight. Dr. Sophie Green watched the reports from her lab on Luna Base. The electromagnetic pulse is working perfectly, she told her team. Every Zephyrian in their military is completely disabled but unharmed. How long will the effect last? Asked Dr. Bell. As long as we keep the pulse generators running. They'll stay conscious but unable to move until we decide to release them. On Earth, President Davis addressed the galaxy. Every alien species received her broadcast. Every human world celebrated as they heard her words. 1 year ago, the Zephyrian hegemony murdered a human child named Danny Wright. They broadcast his death to show our weakness. Today we show them what that child's death awakened. She paused, looking directly into the camera. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. But we are protectors. And when someone threatens our children, we become something far more dangerous than any alien empire. The camera showed images of captured Zephyrian fleets, disabled but unharmed. The Zephyrian hegemony no longer exists. Their military is destroyed. Their leaders are in custody. They will face justice for their crimes, but they will live to see a better future. Across the galaxy, other alien species watched in amazement. The humans had won the most complete victory in galactic history, but they had done it without becoming monsters themselves. Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal sat in his command chair, unable to move, watching his empire crumble around him. He had thought killing one human child would break their spirit. Instead, he had awakened something far more terrifying than any weapon. He had awakened the protective fury of an entire species, and now he would face the consequences of that terrible mistake. The war was over in 18 hours. The mighty Zephyrian hegemony that had ruled half the galaxy for 300 years was finished. Their fleets floated dead in space. Their armies stood frozen on conquered worlds. Their leaders sat helpless in their command centers. The galaxy watched in amazement as human ships began a new kind of operation. Instead of destroying the disabled Zephyrian vessels, they carefully towed them to collection points. Instead of killing the helpless alien soldiers, they gave them medical care and food. President Helen Davis stood before the United Nations building on Earth. Representatives from every human world had gathered for this moment. Behind her, a transport ship landed carrying the most important prisoners in galactic history. Today, justice begins, she announced to the cameras broadcasting across the galaxy. 1 year ago, the Zephyrian hegemony murdered an innocent child to show our weakness. Today they will face trial for their crimes. Supreme Fleet Commander Vextal was the first to walk down the ramp. The electromagnetic effect had worn off, but his hands were bound and human guards surrounded him. He looked around at the thousands of humans watching him and saw something in their eyes that made him afraid. Not hatred, not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. They looked at him like he was a child who had done something terrible, and now had to face the consequences. The trial was held in the largest courtroom ever built. Chief Justice Robert Kim presided over a panel of judges from every human world. Judge Lisa Adams sat beside him, along with judges representing every branch of human law. This tribunal will determine the fate of those responsible for the murder of Danny Wright and the crimes committed by the Zephyrian hegemony, Chief Justice Kim announced. The trial was broadcast live across the galaxy, just like Danny's murder had been. But this time, the broadcast showed something different. It showed justice being served fairly and properly. Ambassador Frank Coleman had worked for years trying to make peace with alien species. Now he served as the prosecutor, presenting evidence of Zephyrian crimes across the galaxy. The evidence shows that the Zephyrian hegemony systematically murdered civilians, enslaved entire species, and destroyed worlds that refused to submit, he told the court. The murder of Danny Wright was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of cruelty that lasted for centuries. Witness after witness came forward. Survivors from worlds the Zephyrians had conquered, families who had lost children to alien raids, former slaves who had escaped Zephyrian prison camps. But the most powerful witness was Jake Wright, Danny's father. He stood at the witness stand with quiet dignity, his wife Linda beside him. "My son was 8 years old," Jake said simply. "He loved stars and spaceships. He wanted to be an explorer when he grew up. He never hurt anyone. He never even killed an insect because he said all life was precious." The courtroom was completely silent. They killed him just to send a message. They thought his death would make humans afraid. But Danny wouldn't want us to be afraid. He would want us to make sure no other child ever faces what he faced. Vextal sat in the defendant's chair, listening to testimony after testimony. For the first time in his life, he began to understand what he had done. He had not just killed one human child. He had destroyed something innocent and pure, something that could never be replaced. The defense was provided by human lawyers who argued that Vextal and his commanders were following orders and the customs of their culture. President Davis had insisted on this. Even monsters deserved a fair trial. But the evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings of massacres, documents ordering the execution of civilians, communications showing that the murder of Danny Wright was planned specifically to terrorize humans. After 7 days of testimony, the judges reached their verdict. We find the defendants guilty of crimes against sentient beings, murder of civilians, and acts of terrorism, Chief Justice Kim announced. However, this court recognizes that execution would make us no better than those we judge. He looked directly at Vextal. You will spend the rest of your lives in prison, but your prison will be special. You will work in human orphanages, caring for children who have lost their parents. You will learn the value of the lives you so casually destroyed. Vextal stared in shock. You're not going to kill us? Death is easy, Judge Adams replied. Learning to value life is much harder. You will spend every day of your remaining years protecting and caring for human children. Maybe then you will understand what you took from the galaxy when you murdered Danny Wright. For Vextal himself, there was a special sentence. He would spend his life at the Danny Wright Memorial Orphanage on the world that had once been Zeph, Prime. Every day he would care for human children whose parents had died in the war he had started. The galaxy watched this trial and learned something important about humans. They could be terrible in war when their children were threatened, but they could also show mercy to their worst enemies. Other alien species rushed to establish peaceful relations with humanity. The Corvan Trade Union sent ambassadors begging to renew their treaties. The Stellar Republic opened their borders to human ships again. Everyone wanted to be friends with the species that had defeated the mighty Zephyrians, but still showed mercy to their prisoners. Ambassador Coleman found himself overwhelmed with requests for peace treaties and trade agreements. Every species in the galaxy wanted to ensure they would never face human wrath. They're all afraid of us now, he reported to President Davis, but they also respect us. They've never seen a species win such a complete victory and still show mercy to their enemies. 6 months after the trial, a ceremony was held on the world that had once been called Zeph Prime. President Davis had renamed it New Hope, and it was now home to the largest memorial in galactic history. The Danny Wright Memorial stood in the center of the new human city. It was a simple statue of a little boy looking up at the stars with words carved beneath it. He died so that no child would ever again face such cruelty. Jake and Linda Wright stood before the memorial with their adopted daughter Emma, a Zephyrian child whose parents had died in the war. They had chosen to forgive and to build something beautiful from their tragedy. Danny would like this, Linda said softly. He always wanted to help other children. Around them, thousands of humans and aliens had gathered for the memorial service. Former enemies worked together to build a better future. Children from dozens of different species played together in the memorial gardens. Admiral Maria Santos, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, delivered the memorial address. She wore her dress uniform but spoke with simple words that everyone could understand. Danny Wright died because evil beings thought murder would make humans afraid. They were wrong. His death didn't break us. It united us. It showed us who we really are when our children are threatened. She looked out at the crowd of humans and aliens listening to her words. We are protectors. We are builders. We are explorers. And we will never ever allow anyone to harm an innocent child again. Danny's memory ensures that the galaxy is safer for all children, human and alien alike. In the distance, Vextal could be seen working in the memorial orphanage, reading stories to human children. He had learned to care for the same kind of life he had once destroyed. Every day he remembered Danny Wright and the terrible mistake that had cost him everything. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. Humans, when truly united, were not just another species. They were guardians. And those who threatened children learned that there were fates far worse than death. They learned that sometimes the greatest punishment was being forced to understand the value of what you had destroyed.